Hi everybody, it's Tuesday, April 4th. It's about 9 a.m. I'm recording this now, but you'll listen to it later on, maybe during the regular class period. I'm doing this at home, and so you're going to hear some birds chirping in the background. I'm in a room where I have my parrots, and they like to chirp, so hopefully that won't be too distracting. I've locked my cats out, so you won't see random numbers and letters appearing on the keyboard. We're going to finish the Lecture 10 notes, Bash Scripts 2, and I'm going to skip right to the game at the end of the lecture notes, and we'll just write a little game and see if we can make it somewhat fun. Don't expect very much, because we can't make a very sophisticated game in this class. The reason I'm using a game is not because of the game itself, but I want to use the tools we've learned in Bash shell scripting, but in a context that's more entertaining, and that's why I'm going to do it in the context of a text-based video game. If you go on to take ENR 304, we'll show you how to add graphics and things to video games and make them more exciting and interesting. But for now, we're just going to do it in a text-based way so that you'll learn the tools of Bash shell scripting in a context of a bigger project. And then, starting next class, starting next week, I will be showing you the scripts that are currently collecting the data for the concrete experiment. And you'll understand those scripts because you'll now have all the tools available to understand them. There'll be a few little extra added things in there, but I'll explain them along the way. And then we'll be close to the end of the course. I'm going to be uploading an assignment today, and that assignment's just going to be something to do with this game. It's just going to be to extend the game in a certain way. So if you understand what we do today, then you shouldn't have much trouble extending it in order to complete the last assignment of the course. Then there's the project, the final project of the course, and that's going to entail our data collection that we have underway right now. I've been checking on it, and it's finally got to the point where the humidity is below 100%. The way that works is the concrete has extra moisture on it, basically water that's got to evaporate first before the water that's embedded in the concrete starts to diffuse outward and escape. And that takes about 10 days before the free water is gone, and then it starts to dry inside. And that means the little air pockets and things inside start to become below 100% humidity. And I've noticed that a couple of the cylinders are now at 99%. And so by the time we get to this next week, they'll be down in the 90s in humidity, and then we'll actually be able to look at them in an interesting context. So that's coming up next week. This week we're going to do the game today, and then on Thursday we're going to do some CAD. I'm going to show you on Thursday how to make the little brackets that we put inside the drying concrete. You know, those plastic brackets with the 3 holes in it. And you'll recall that we put the sensors through those holes, and then we put that inside the concrete as we were pouring it. So in next class, I'm going to show you how to design and 3D print those brackets. And then next week, we'll finish the course by looking at data collection and how that's done. Okay, so to move on for today, we're going to use the notes from Lecture 2 and start out with our first game program. So I'm on my desktop right now. I'm going to make a program called game.sh, a shell script. And as usual, at the top of the shell script, I tell the computer that it's a bash program. And let's make it very simple to start out with. I'm going to first give you an array, and the array is going to be called position. And remember, it has to have no spaces between the equal sign and the things on either side of it, so that Bash doesn't get confused and think position is a command. And it's a variable, and it's going to be equal to this array with 2 numbers in it, 0, 0. And what that's going to mean is that you start out the game at the position 0, 0 in a 2-dimensional grid. In other words, the origin of coordinates. So if you think of this as a graph with a coordinate system on it, we're starting out with our game character, right at the origin. Okay, next I'm going to have a door. And the door, we'll put that at, for example, 2 space minus 2. So the coordinates 2 minus 2 are where the door are. But of course the person playing this game isn't going to know where that door is, and we can put it wherever we want. And it's just a simple game. The game is going to be to explore this coordinate system until you find the door. Okay? And we'll make it more sophisticated later, but let's get this first part working. Okay, now I'll make a variable called light. And the variable called light is just going to be a quotation. I'm going to put 2 spaces, and then I'm going to say, I can see a light from the, unquote. And you'll see why it's an incomplete sentence in a little bit. Okay, and that's just a variable, so nothing gets printed out. Well, let's start the game by printing something out for the user. So echo is what we use to print things out. And I'm just going to echo a bunch of dashes. And we'll, I don't know, pick an arbitrary number of dashes, and we may have to increase or decrease it depending on how it looks on the screen later. And now that I've got that, I'm going to escape and YYP to make another set of dash lines exactly the same length. And then O to open up a space in between. And let's echo inside there 2 spaces. You'll see why I have the 2 spaces in front. It just ends up looking better. You are, this is the first message that the user will see. You are lost in a cave. Now let's have another message on the next line. 2 spaces to begin with. You can quit any time with let's actually put that in quotation marks. Actually, let's put that up here. And then just make our dashes a little bit longer so that it encompasses the end of the thing like that. I just pressed a dot because if you press a dot, it'll repeat the last thing you did, and that will give me the exact same number of dashes. These are little tricks you learn as you get better and better at Vim. Okay, so you notice I had to put backslashes in front of these quotations because I want the quotations to print out. I don't want them to be the end of the echo statement. I want them to actually print out on the screen. So there we are, that's that. And now let's just put an empty line after that so that there's a space between the message and what when it waits for the user's input. So let's go ahead and just run it as it is and make sure that this part works. So I'm going to save it by going WQ, and then I'm going to make it executable with chmod plus X. And now I'm just going to run it. There, that looks pretty good. You are lost in a cave, you can quit anytime with quit. So that's exactly what I want the message to look like. And now that I have that set up, I can go on to make the game. Okay, so that's the first thing the user will see. Now I have to have the user input something. So I'm going to use a while loop. So I'm going to go while, and remember it said that I can quit any time with quit. So let's make our while loop contain 2 things with a big exclamation mark in front. The exclamation mark means not, and so the 2 things that will cause the game to end are, number 1, if they find the door, then they get out of the cave and they win. And the next thing is if they type quit. So what I want to do is check for those 2 things, and if those 2 things happen, I will skip this while loop and move on to the end of the game. And so if I'm testing for 2 things that end the while loop, I want to put a not in front. So as long as I'm not at the door and I didn't type quit, I'll keep playing. Make sense? Okay. So how do I know if I'm at the door? Well, if I'm at the door, then position, the variable that I have called position, the first component of it, position 0, will be equal to door 0. Right? The x coordinate of my position will be equal to the x coordinate of the door. And also position 1, the y coordinate of my position, will be equal to the y coordinate of the door. Okay, and let's start out with just that as my conditions. So if the x coordinate of the position is not the door and the y coordinate of the position is not the door, then I'll do what's inside this while loop. I could have done it by using an until right here. So I could have made this until and then no exclamation point. In other words, it'll keep doing this stuff in the middle until those conditions are true. But it's more usual, and I'm not really sure why, but most people usually use while loops more often than until loops. And so I'm going to go ahead and just use a while loop with a not. And that's exactly the same thing as an until loop. It's not then at the end, it's a do. While those conditions are true, then you do the following stuff. And what are we going to do? Well, the first thing we'll do is tell the user where he is, he or she. So I'm going to always have 2 spaces in front when I'm talking to the user, just because it sets aside the stuff the computer is telling the user and the stuff that the user is typing in. So first thing I'm going to tell them is your current position. So your current position is, and now I want to print out the current position, but I want to print it out in a coordinate fashion. So I want to have a bracket. I want to print it out as an x-y coordinate. So a bracket and then the value of the x and the y coordinates of the position. And to get the value of a variable, you remember you put a $sign in front. And if it's an array, I need a set of curly braces around it like that. So a $sign and then a set of curly braces with the variable inside. And then I want to have a comma because I'm going to do it in sort of the normal mathematical way of doing XY coordinate systems, which is like that. And then a closed bracket. Your current position is that. Okay, that's the first thing I echo. And then I'm going to say do you want to go north, south, east, or west? And then I'll echo a new line character. Okay, and then the next thing I'm going to do is read a variable from the user that I'm just going to call command. Read command. Okay, and now let's just check our program to see if it works the way we want it to. So I'm going to put an exit there, which I'll remove later, and then I'll put a done to end the while loop. Okay, so it'll just do this once and then it'll exit, but I just want to make sure that everything that I've done so far looks correct. Okay, so let's quit and give it a try. Okay, you were lost in a cave. You can quit at any time with quit. Your current position is 0, 0. That worked good. Do you want to go north, south, east, or west? And now it's waiting for me, so let's type north, but good. And so it took a reading from me and then it quit just like I wanted it to, but it does look exactly like I want it to look. In particular, I was looking at the coordinate 0, 0, just to make sure that looked like a normal coordinate that I want the game to reveal to the user. So let's go back in. We know everything works up until reading this command, so I'll get rid of the exit. And now let's continue on. The way I'm going to test what the user wants is I'm going to use a switch, which means I start out with case, and then I'm going to use brackets just because if there's spaces in the person's command, I want them all to be considered there. So I'm going to go $command in. And you remember how cases work. The case starts out with the thing I want to test, which is command, and now I'm going to have a bunch of cases inside it. And you'll notice that I'm indenting everything so that it all remains logically ordered and easy to read. And so first thing I'm going to test for in my switch here is whether the user typed a Q or the word quit. And how I do that, you'll remember, is I'm going to use sort of a regular expression thing here. Lowercase q or capital case Q will work. or lowercase q, capital case Q, followed by the letters UIT. Now, as we saw in class, you don't need to have those quotation marks around the UIT, but I'm just going to put them anyway, just to get into the habit of it. And then a right round bracket or parentheses to end the thing that I'm testing command against. So if command is equal to a lowercase q and uppercase Q, or quit with a lowercase q and the word quit with an uppercase Q, any of those four things, it'll do the stuff inside this part of the switch. And what am I going to do if they do decide to quit? I'm going to put an arrow and I'm going to say thank you for playing. Very nicely. Then I'm going to echo a new line just to make it spaced out nicely, and then I'm going to exit the program. And how you end each case is with 2 semicolons like that, as you recall. Okay, let me put some space down here just so that I'm in the middle of your screen when you're watching this instead of gray down at the bottom all the time. Okay, next thing we want to do is we want all of the options that the user was given. They can type quit, of course, but they can also type north, south, east, or west. So we want to have a case for each of those. And now I'm going to do that by just copying these 4 lines. And I could, or these 5 lines. I could go Y5Y, but that would entail me having to visually count those 5 lines. And I can do it now. But in the future, I'd rather get used to another method where I don't have to count up the number of lines. So I'm just going to press MA, and that sets a mark on that line called A. And then I'm going to press J to go down to here. Now that I'm on the last line that I want to yank, I'm going to go Y, single quote A. The single quote is the one that's right beside the Enter key. And you see it means yank to A. Yank to the mark that I placed there. So it yanked those 5 lines and left me right at the place that I marked with an A. So there, I've yanked those 5 lines. I'm just going to go down to this one and press P, and that will paste it after that line. So I have an identical copy right there. And it's just easier to do it that way rather than retyping it all. And so the first thing I want to check for is if they typed the word north. And I'm going to do it the same way as I did with quit. I'm sitting on top of the lowercase q, so I'm going to press RN. R means replace the character under the key, and the N was what I replaced it with. Now I press L to move over, R capital Q. Oh, sorry, R capital N. And I'm just going to move over R lowercase n, R capital N, and then instead of quit, I'm going to have the word north. So ORTH. Now I don't need the thank you for playing, so I'm just going to DD that. And instead, I'm going to put a new echo in here. And the echo is going to say, you go north. Okay? And now, it says I went north. And let's get rid of that new space. You go north. Now, I have to actually make the position move north. And how I do that is I just use the increment thing. Remember, I could use some $signs here, but we've noticed that you don't need them. So if I move north, that means that my y coordinate, position 1, becomes position 1 plus 1. In other words, it increments my y coordinate. Moving north on my coordinate system means my y coordinate goes up by 1. So there, and now I don't want to exit. I want to continue being able to do these things. But instead, what I'm going to do is, let's put in south, east, and west. So there's 4 lines here for my north guy, and those are going to be very similar to the lines I'm going to need for south, east, and west. So I'm going to just go mark A, yank to A, and I'm going to go paste, and then I'm going to go down here and go paste again, and then go down here and go paste again. And that'll take care of my south, east, and west. So let's put the south in. S. Oops. Ugh. Replace with a capital S. Okay, good. And then this should say south, like that. And then I'll change this to south. I just went change word. And now, if I'm going south, it just means my position coordinate is being decreased by 1, my y coordinate. Okay, now let's go east. R-E, R capital E, R-E, R capital E, change word, E-A-S-T, E-A-S-T, J-K to escape. And now change word, east. And now, if you're going east, east is in the right-hand direction on a coordinate system. And that means that I'm increasing my x-coordinate by 1. So the x-coordinate is my 0th index of the array. So I'll just change these to zeros there. That'll increase my x-coordinate by 1. And finally now we go to west. So RW, R capital W, RW, R capital W, EST for west, change word, west. And now that's the same as decreasing my x-coordinate by 1. There. So that should take care of quit and moving northwest, northeast, southwest, etc. All right, now what we need to end this case is if they don't do any of those things, then I'm not going to understand it because I haven't implemented anything else. In the future, I can implement lots of things. Like I could have it so there was little treasures and different other things you can do, and I just have to add a case for each one. But for now, I'm just going to put the wild card, and in the wild card one, which will capture anything else, all I'm going to do is just have it say I don't understand. And in fact, what you could do is say I don't understand $command, so that the user actually sees the command that the computer doesn't understand. And then 2 semicolons to end that. And then the way to end a case statement is case spelled backwards, which is ESAC. And let's just make sure that's on the same line. Yep, case and then ESAC. Okay, excellent. Now I'm at the point where I should be able to just test it. I'm just going to get rid of all that extra space there. Let's test it. It's of course it's not going to do anything, but you notice that at the beginning of the while loop up here, it says your current position is, and then it states the current position. And so as I'm continuing to play this forever until I type quit, or until I hit the door, it will just keep telling me my position and have me wandering around, okay? So let's make sure that the positions all work properly. All right, so I'm going to clear the screen. Let's play the game. You're lost in a cave. You can quit at any time with quit. Your current position is 0, 0. Do you want to go north, south, east, or west? Well, let's just do a lowercase n and see if that works. You go north. Your current position is 0, 1. See, so it did increase the y-coordinate by 1, just like I wanted it to. And notice now you see why I've indented the echo statements. It's just so that you can separate what the computer's saying to me and what the message and the things I type. Even that you go north could be indented to make it look better, but I don't know, I like this. This means that the current position thing is what's indented. So if I go north again by typing the whole word north, it does go north again, so that's good. Let's try west. See, I went west, which is to the left, which means my x-coordinate is now -1. Now, if you'll recall where the door was, right back at the beginning here, we put the door at the position +2, -2. So let's go over to that. In order to go that way, to make my x-coordinate +2, I have to go east, east, east. There. Now my x-coordinate is +2, and now I want my y-coordinate to be -2, so I'm going to go south, south, south. And now if I do it one more time, south one more time, it'll be at the position of the door. And now if the code was written properly, that should end the game because I made it to the door. I'm at the door right now. How come I'm not finished? I don't understand. Let's try south again. So obviously something is wrong because my current position is 2, -2, which is where the door was supposed to be, and I'm not exiting the game. So I'm going to try my quit and then go back in and see what's wrong. Okay, quit worked, but there is something wrong here, and let's see if we can figure out what it is. The door is at 2 minus 2, just what I thought it was. And now this says while position 0 is equal to door 0, that's the x-coordinate, and position 1 is equal to door 1, that's the y-coordinate, I do this. In other words, while those things are not true, because there's an exclamation mark, I'm going to continue doing this. And so as we go down here, these things are working correctly. And so when I hit those things at this point here, it should actually be correctly doing this. So what in the world is going wrong here? I'm going to just pause this for a second and see if I can figure it out without wasting your time. Okay, you know what the problem is? My cursor is sitting right on it. Look at that word right there. That's not position, that's postition. Okay, so let's get rid of this T. I hope some of you noticed that when I was typing it and were laughing at me. So if I get rid of that T there, now that word says position. So it was, the reason it wasn't working is this can never happen because I don't have a variable named postition. Okay, so let's give this a try now. Hopefully I didn't misspell it any other places in here. Okay, so spelling mistakes are okay. At least it's not a fundamental error. All right, let's play it again, and I'm just going to go straight to the exit and see if it works. South, south. Okay, now the exit should be east twice. Good. Okay, so it was the spelling mistake that caused the problem. It didn't even show me my coordinate when I hit the door. It just ended the game. Let's make that better. I don't like it just ending the game like that. Instead, let's have it say something like congratulations at least. So if you get past this while loop, it means you hit the door. So let's go ahead and echo something like, you know, congratulations. Okay, so in fact, let's go up here and let's copy this original message. So I'm going to go mark A, yank to A, and I'm going to press capital G to get to the bottom, and then just go paste there. So I've got that original message, and now I'll just change it. So I'm going to delete all of this and delete all of this, just so I can use this same kind of structure. And now let's congratulate the person. You escaped the cave. I'll put 2 exclamation marks. Let me YY PPPPP, just so I can make a longer message without having to type all that stuff. The beautiful blue sky. Except for today in North Dakota, which is the beautiful snowstorm. And let's put an empty line there, and now we'll say there is a trail ahead and a stream nearby. Yeah, why not put that on the same line? Who cares? There's a trail ahead and a stream nearby. What would you like to do now? And I don't need that one. So there we are. All right, let's test out this message and just make sure it looks nice on the screen. I don't know, this line might be too long for those little dashes, and I might have to increase the length of those dashes, but let's test that first. Okay, clear game. Well, let's just go straight to the exit. South, south, east, east. Yeah, it is too long. So I guess I want to add some more dashes there. Or maybe I should just put the nearby back on the second line like I did before. Yeah, let's do that. Capital G to get down to the bottom. And I'm going to go YYP to make a copy of that line. And let's just do that. And then let's just exit all that. So there's a trail ahead and a stream nearby. Okay, good. So now the game works. It's actually basically a complete game now, to be honest. I can move around all I want, and if I just happen to stumble to the door, I get out. However, it's not very interesting. And one of the main reasons why it's not very interesting is that you just have to, if you didn't know where the door was, you could just randomly wander around forever without finding it, because I haven't put any limits to the size of this thing. And you can basically just keep going north, south, east, and west until you happen to luckily find the door. So what I want to do is add something in here to make it a little easier and therefore a little more fun than just randomly wandering around. And what we'll do is we'll keep everything the way it is right now, like that. But what I would like to do inside this, so I do the case statement, but before I hit the done over here, I want to have something else in there, right? So I want to, so the case statement will get the instruction from the user and check to see which direction the user goes. And let's go ahead and have that the same. But now, after I know which direction the user goes, I'll know what their new position is. I'm going to give them some information, and I'm going to do that with an if statement. So I'm going to go if, and now let's put position 0 if position 0 is equal to door 0. So in other words, if the user's x coordinate is in line with the door, in other words, if the door is on the same x coordinate as the user, now there's easier ways to do this, but I'm using methods that will show more. I want to show you all the different things you can do, because obviously in the future we're going to be using this for something different than a game. But so if the x coordinate is the same as the x coordinate of the door, and the y coordinate is not equal to the y coordinate of the door, then, right, so that's that thing right there. I think my notes are incorrect here. I was looking at the notes and they don't seem to, it doesn't look to me like it works. That doesn't have dollar signs in front of the doors, but ours will. Anyway, I think you can see what this does. If the x coordinate, if your position x coordinate is the same as the door, but your y coordinate is not the same as the door, I want to give you some information. So let's do another if statement inside this one. Now I want a statement where, what if I'm underneath the door? In other words, what if my y position, if my position y is less than, I already know it's not equal to because it made it through that first if statement. If it's less than the y coordinate of the door, like that, then that means I'm underneath the door. I'm at this exact same x coordinate, but I'm down south of the door. So I want to give a little bit of information. I'm going to say then echo $light north. Now remember what $light was? Let's go back up here for a second and show you. Right at the beginning, you remember I put a variable called $light, and the variable says I can see a light from the. I didn't have to do this. I'm just doing it just to give you more and more different variants so you can see how to build stuff. I know I'm going to be using this phrase, I can see a light from the, many times in the code. So all I did is I just made a variable equal to it, and then down here I just say $light north, and so what that will come out as is I can see a light from the north. Okay, I could have used a function, maybe a function called light. Why don't we do that? I could use a let's go yeah, instead of, yeah, let's change it from the way the notes are. I'm going to delete this. I'm going to go, let's go light north. Okay, and now let's go up to the top. I'm going to get rid of this, but I'm going to make it a function. So I'm going to go function light, and remember how functions work. There's an open curly brace, and then I'm just going to go echo. I can see a light from the $1. And then close the function. Now you see, all I have to do is type light and then north, and it'll say I can see a light from the north. That's another way of doing it. So down here, we'll test it out in a bit. So light north, there we go. And now, if you look at this first guy, that means my x-coordinate is the same as the door, but my y-coordinate is not the same as the door. This next one says my y-coordinate is less than the door, and if that's the case, I'm going to say light. I can see a light coming from the north. Now, what if it's not? So else, I'm going to go light south, and then Fi closes it. Why does that work? Because I already know my y-coordinate is not the same as the door, because I got through this if statement that my cursor is on. Now this guy says, is it less than the door? If it is, that means the door must be north of me. If it's not, that means it must be greater than the door. I don't even have to do another test. I already know if it's not less than the door, then it must be greater than, and in that case, the light is going to be coming from the south. Okay? Now, that basically ends this if statement up here. This one that tests if I'm higher than or lower than, and it also ends this if statement up there. So what I want to do now is I want to end this guy with an Fi. There. So that this entire if statement with another one inside it tests the case where my x-coordinate is the same as the door. So I'm going to mark A right here, go down to Fi, yank to A, and yank that whole thing, and then paste it again underneath. Okay, and now I'm just going to modify it. The case I want to check now is when my x-coordinate is not the same as the door, but my y-coordinate is the same as the door. So all I did is change this to a not equal to and this one to an equal, and that'll test the case where my x-coordinate is not the same, but my y-coordinate is. And if that's the case, I want to change these. If my x-coordinate is not the same, but my y-coordinate is, and then I check and see that my x-coordinate is less than the door, that means the door is greater than me, and the door is to the right of me. So that means I'm going to see a light from the east. And if it's not, that means the door must be to the west of me. Okay? There. So these two if statements here will give the user more information about what's going on. Let's test that. And it should allow the user to find the exit more easily. So let's try it. Lost in a cave, your current position. Okay, so let's go north. Nothing happened. Let's go north again. Nothing happened. But it tells me my coordinates are changing. Let's go east. Okay, I went east once. Let's go east again. Ooh, you see I went east again, and now it says I can see a light from the south. And that's good because my position is 2, 2, and I can see a light from the south. That means the door must be to the south of me. So let's go south. And it still says I can see a light from the south. Let's go south again. Still says it. Keep going south. Still says it. Ah, as soon as I got to 2 minus 2, it says you escaped this. You go south and you escaped the cave. So it works just the way we want it, and it gives us a little more information. So now it's actually a very easy game. You just have to wander around until you start seeing lights, and then move towards the lights, and you escape. Okay. We're going to make this a little more interesting in a second, but I'm just going to take a bit of a pause here, and I'll be back momentarily. Okay, I'm back. One of the advantages of doing this from home is that I can pause it, go make myself a cup of coffee, and come back, and it's only 1 second for you, and it's 10 minutes for me. Okay, so what are we going to do now? Let's get our game back. And what I want to do is include some more functions. So I have a function here called light. Well, let's add one for treasure. Let's make the game a little more interesting so that it actually includes treasure. So what I'm going to have to do is place some treasure somewhere, and I'm just going to call it treasure, but let's put an if statement. And I'm going to check to make sure. Let's see if the user is at the location of the treasure. And what I'm going to do is put here. Before we finish that, let's go up and place some treasure. So I'm going to go treasure equals, and then put some coordinates for, let's just randomly put some like -1, 2 there. So the treasure will be at -1, 2. Okay, and now let's also have another variable called inventory. And inventory at the moment is just going to be empty. Let's just, no space in there, just empty. Okay, and so what's going to happen is if I get the treasure, then it'll be placed into my inventory. Okay, so let's go back down here. Now, what happens, how am I going to use this treasure? Well, I'll type it in and then we'll explain it. I'm going to put $1, which you'll recall means the first command line argument to the function treasure. And if $1 is equal to variable treasure 0, the x coordinate of 0. Now obviously this could be done in other ways. I'm just using these ways to show you techniques. So if $1 is treasure 0 and $2 is equal to treasure 1, now treasure 1, 2 brackets, remember there's a space there. So if that's true, in other words, the first command line argument is equal to the x coordinate of the treasure, and the second command line argument is equal to the y coordinate of the treasure. What do I want to do? Well, I want to echo you found some treasure. And I'll put an exclamation point because it's pretty remarkable. And now I found the treasure and I want to take it. And in order to take it, I have to actually add it to my inventory. So what I'm going to do then is this. Inventory plus equals bracket quotation treasure close bracket. And then I'm also going to remove it from the treasure. So I'm going to go treasure equals nothing. So there's no more treasure, but inventory, the variable that I had, array that I had in my inventory, this plus equals is a shorthand for it's equal to its original value plus the thing that I put in the brackets. So if it actually had something in there before, it would now have another thing added to it. Since there's only one treasure, I could have just went inventory equals treasure like that, and it would still do the same thing. But I want to think about the future and put a plus equals so that if I added more treasure, I could keep adding things to my inventory array. And maybe we'll do that in a minute. But first, let's just do this part. And now else echo I don't see anything here to take. And then we'll close the if statement. Actually, what I should do is, instead of you found some treasure, let's put you take some treasure, and I'll show you why in a second. And now that's the end of my function, so I'm going to put a closed curly brace to end this function right here. Okay, so now I have a function called treasure, and it hasn't done anything because I haven't used it in my program yet. I've just set it up. So there, the function's there. Now I want to go down further into my program and actually use the treasure somewhere. Okay, so how in the world am I going to do that? Well, let's let's go all the way down and let's add another thing in here, and so I can go north, south, east, or west. Actually, let's have it so that it not only tells the user where they are located, but it'll also tell them if there's some treasure there. And we should also tell them what their inventory is. So it says your current position is that. I'm gonna yank that line, YY, and then I'm gonna paste it right underneath. And I'm gonna say something like you are carrying. So you are carrying. And now, what am I going to say for what are you carrying? Let's just put inventory. And then remember, if I put an ampersand inside there, and that tells the guy to print out the entire array of stuff. So in other words, you're carrying, and I'll put brackets around it too, who cares? And there, so now that'll tell me what I'm carrying. Now, do you want to go north, south, east, or west? Let's go, do you want to go north, south, east, or west? How about let's say, okay, it says you can quit anytime. Let's put another echo. Let's go echo. Or you can take anything you see using take. And I put those with escape so that it actually has the quotation marks around take. Good. Well, now I have to actually go to my case statement and add a command called take. So I'm going to mark that line, yank to that line, and then paste underneath RT, R capital T, RT, R capital T, take. Okay, so how do I use take? Well, all I do now is I put that in there. Now if I'm going to take something, let's see. All right. Now, in the case of take, I'm going to have an if statement in here. I basically just want to use the take function right here. And how I'm going to do that is the guy is at some position, and my function is called treasure. So I'm going to use my function treasure, but the arguments to the function are going to be the coordinates of the dude. Like that. Remember, the function treasure takes two command line arguments, $1 and $2, and I want to give it the arguments which are the current position of the guy. So now it'll apply that function to the coordinates that the person is standing at. And what's that going to do? Well, depending on where I am, it's going to go up here and run this function. And what does the function do? Well, it compares my x coordinate with the x coordinate of the treasure, and it compares the y coordinate with the y coordinate of the treasure. And if they are the same, it says you take some treasure. And it adds the treasure to my inventory and removes the treasure from treasure array. And if they aren't the same as where the treasure is, it says I don't see anything here to take. okay? So that should already work exactly the way it is. However, what I would like to do is right here, it's giving the user some information about where the door is, but I want to add some more in there. I want to give it information about the treasure. So in other words, I want it to be able to tell the person, like, if they're standing in the same, grid space where there's a treasure, I want it to say there's some treasure here. So I'll do that by grabbing one of these guys just so I don't have to retype it all. So I'm going to go mark A and down to this final if, and I'll go yank to A, and then I'll paste underneath that another one, except this one is not going to be with the door. I'm going to say if position 0 is equal to treasure 0, and if position 1 is equal to treasure 1, in other words, if they're standing right in the same room as the treasure, then, well, I don't have to do any more ifs in here. But if you're at the same position of the treasure, I want it to say echo there. Here, let's make this bigger so that things aren't wrapping around. There we go. Then I'm going to echo, there is some treasure here! Exclamation point. There. Now that will give the user some information when they enter an area where there's treasure. It'll say there's treasure, and that way they'll know that it's time to try and take something. Okay? All right, I think we're ready to try this out. Let's just remind ourselves where the treasure is so I don't wander around looking for it. I want to test out whether this treasure part works, the one I just added in. And I know that it's at -1, 2. So let's try it and see if we can find that treasure. Okay, you're lost in a cave. You can quit anytime with quit. Your current position is 0, 0. You're carrying nothing. Do you want to go north, south, east, or west? Or you can take anything you see using take. Good. That's exactly what we want. So where was it again? I think it was west. And then it was north. And then I think one more north. Yes, you can see that as soon as I got to the position -1, 2, it says there is some treasure here. Your current position is that, and you're carrying nothing. Okay, so let's take. Take. There, you take some treasure. Your current position is still the same. You're carrying treasure. Good. So it works perfectly. And let's just see if we can get out now with our treasure. So I'm going to go east, east, east. Now it says I see a light from the south, so let's go south, south, and I keep going south, and I escape. We may want to actually say when we escaped what we're carrying or whatever, but so far the game works really well, although of course you have to wander around if you want to try and find the treasure. So finally, we got one more thing we're going to do, and that is we're going to make the game a little more interesting. So let me just take a sip of my coffee here. Okay, let's do the last little bit of our game now. What I want to add now is, first let's do something that everybody, well, a lot of people do. You'll notice that my functions aren't like distinguished from anything else. A lot of times what people do is they'll put an underscore as the leading character in the name of a function, and they do that so that when you're going down the list here and you see something, you'll know if it's a function or not. So this guy here says treasure. I have to put an underscore now because I've changed the name of it to treasure. And I also up here, okay, where did I use? I used light. So let's look for light. There, it says light north and light south. Well, I want to make that underscore light now because I changed the name of my function to underscore. Now the reason why we do that is just so that now when I'm reading this code, I know that this thing here, this light, is not a variable or anything like that. And it's not an external function, like grep or sed or something like that. It's a function that I've defined in this program, and it's called light. And so now I know to go up and check what that function is. It may not seem useful right now, but if you have lots of functions in your program, it's nice to distinguish them from other things so that you know that you can go look at what it is, especially if somebody else wrote it. So what do I want to add? Well, what I would like to do is add a help menu, because if I add more and more of these commands, someone may start to forget how many and what their available commands are. And so I'm going to add a function called help. So I'm going to go up to the top here, and I'm just going to open a new line and go function underscore help. I'm going to use underscore from now on, and I'm going to put a close brace under it right now so that I don't forget to put that in later. And now inside the function help, all it's going to do is just echo all of the available commands. So it's going to say the available commands are, and I'll put a colon there, and then I'll just put some echo things. The first one is going to be this help menu. So H, I'll just use the one letter version of these things, although it will allow you to do the whole word help and capital and lowercase all they want, because I'll put those in the case statement down below. But for the help menu, I'll just put the simplest one. So H is going to be this menu. Okay, now let's YY to yank that line, and then let's paste all the rest of them. I'm going to need north, south, east, west, take. I'm also going to add a command called inventory and another command called position. And then finally an empty space, and that'll be it for the help. So H is this menu. Then I'm going to have a north, a south, an east, a west, a take, an inventory, and a position. So let's make sure that the menu says those things. Move north, if I pressed an N. Let's change word to move, and then I'm just going to go down and change all these to move. I should have yanked that instead. Oops. And so move north, move south, move east. I'm just doing CW for change word, and change word, move west. Okay, that's north, south, east, and west. T, I'll just put take. And I, inventory. And then finally, position is P. Now, notice that I haven't actually implemented the inventory or the position or the help yet in this program. There's the function help. So what I want to do now is go down and add those options in there. So I'll go down to my case statement over here, and I've already got take. Let's just go and mark A, yank to A, and let's put the help menu in there. I went $$ to get rid of that. Change word help. There. So the help menu, all it does is just, if you press any of those combinations of H or whatever, it just runs my help function that I defined above. Okay, now there was two other ones in there. There was inventory and there was position. So let's just yank 3 lines again and do the inventory. Inventory. So that'll be inventory with a capital or a lowercase I. Now what do I want to do for inventory? Let's find out if there is any inventory. So let's put an if statement in here. And I'll say if inventory ampersand, in other words, the entire array of inventory, is not equal to 0. In other words, if there's something there, then echo you are carrying And let's just print out the array of the inventory. You're carrying there, that's all the stuff you're carrying. And then let's put an else. In other words, if the inventory is empty, equal to 0, I'm going to say you aren't carrying anything. You are not carrying anything. And then let's close the if statement with fi, or if spelled backwards. Okay, so there's the inventory one, and now the last one I want to put is the position. So let's just yank 3 lines here, go down here, paste them. I just yanked the help again. P, 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 position. Now, all I'm going to do in the case of a position is just print out the position of the guy. So I'm going to go echo your current position is $, position, ampersand, unquote. Actually, let's put brackets around it so that it's in sort of a coordinate system way of doing it. There's your position. Okay, now since I have the command where you're allowed to print out your position, I'm going to go up to my message. This is the message that gets printed out every time. And I'm going to change this because now I don't have to give them all this information. They can get it by typing in the commands. So all I'm going to do here is just get rid of it all. Let's get rid of all of it and just put in here, what would you like to do? And then I'll put the brackets here, and I'll put H, H for help. There. Just so that at least they know that if they want to find out what the commands are, they can type H. But otherwise, I'm not going to give them any information at all. They have to use these commands in order to get information out of me. All right. Well, I think we're now in a position where we can test this out and see if everything we've added works. Normally, what one would do is test them out as we add them. But let's go ahead and try the new functionality that we've added to the game. You're lost in the cave, what would you like to do? So now it doesn't tell me anything, so I'm going to just type H for help. The available commands are this menu, move north, move south. It seems to work just the way we want it to. Let's do P for position. Your current position is 0, 0. That's good. Let's do I for inventory. You are carrying, and then blah. So it didn't actually say you're carrying nothing. So that means there's something wrong with my code, and I think the wrong thing is when I put not equal to 0. So what I should do is quit. Thank you for playing. Edit my game. Now the problem is I don't want it to say you're carrying. I want it to say there you're not carrying anything. So if I go down to where my you are carrying thing, so inventory right here. If inventory is not equal to 0, then I say you're carrying. But what I really should do is say if inventory is not equal to nothing, like that. And remember, inventory is a bunch of words. It's not a number. And so I have to use the not equal to because I'm comparing strings. I would use a -ne if I was comparing numbers. But let's see if changing these two quotations to just quotations with nothing in them works. Okay. H, that's good. Now let's try inventory. You are not carrying anything. Good. So that worked. That's what I wanted it to say. So let's go find that treasure again, if I can remember where it was. I think it was west. Let's see the position. Position is -1, 0. Let's go. No, it's -1. Let's go north. North. Ah, Good. My position right now is -1, 2. It says there's treasure here, and it's going to continue saying treasure there. If I go help, it gives me the help commands, and it keeps saying there's treasure here. So let's try our take command. Remember, I'll do inventory first. You can see I'm not carrying anything. Let's go take. You take some treasure. All right, now let's try inventory again. You are carrying treasure. Good. So the new functionality we added in there seems to work. It shows that I have the treasure. You might want to add something in where I can drop stuff. Maybe the game could be where maybe how about the game is you're a dragon and you're going around collecting treasure from little villages and taking it back to your hoard and then dumping it on the pile. So what you'd do is you'd have the coordinates for your treasure pile maybe at the origin, and you wander around the countryside taking treasure, and then you can only carry so much. Like you could always have it so that if you're carrying more than a certain amount of treasure, it won't let you take any more. And then you have to go all the way back to the origin, and then you have to drop the treasure onto your treasure pile and then go back out and collect more. That would be a good way to make the game more interesting. And then, after you get a certain amount of treasure collected, or if you gather all the treasure, that's when the game ends. That might be a fun game to do. But so far we've got sort of functionality that you would need to do that. And it seems to work just great. So I'm going to quit. No, let's not quit. Let's exit the game by finding the exit. I'm going to go east. Oh, I see a light from the south. I'm going to go south. And I escape the cave. Maybe I would want that message to say you escaped the cave and you're carrying the treasure or something. Okay, so last but not least, I want to add one more piece of functionality after I take a sip of this coffee. Okay, the last thing I want to do is just show you something kind of cool. So I'm going to go sudo apt install pv. What the heck's my password? Okay, there we go. There. It shouldn't take long. It's just a short little program. I installed pv. And now let's just try it out. And I'm going to try it out by going echo hello, how are you? And I'm going to pipe that into pv. And I'm going to go pv dash q capital L space 10. Now what in the world is that going to do? Let's see. You see that? Let's try it again. Now, can you see why that might make the game a little more interesting? If I go into my game and everywhere that I echo something to the user, instead of just echoing it, if I pipe it into this PV, then it'll type it out more slowly like that, and it's sort of, and it's, suppose I make this a 5 instead of a 10. You can see it's going a lot more slowly. And now let's make it like 20. It's more quickly. So you can make the speed that it's printing out slower or faster. And that might add a little more ambiance to the game and make it more fun. Okay, so I think you can see if you got to the end of the lecture notes, and we're now very close to the end of this lecture, you can see that there's a project there. And that project is essentially what your final assignment is going to be. Not your final project in the course. The final project in the course is the data collection one, but this will be your assignment number 10. And assignment number 10 is essentially going to be the stuff you see at the end of the lecture notes called project. It's going to be to take the game that we've written today and make it better by adding some functionality to it. Okay, so now you know what the final project is going to be. So to end this lecture today, what I would like you to do is everybody install something that we're going to need in next class. So go sudo apt install, and I want you to install OpenSCAD. Now mine says it's already the newest version, but if you don't have it on your computer, it will now install OpenSCAD. OpenSCAD is the CAD software that we're going to use next lecture to design our bracket that holds the sensors in the concrete. And one more thing you're going to need to install is sudo apt install slicker, or slick3r. It's actually slicer with a backwards E, but people for some reason pronounce it slick3r, but it's really probably supposed to be pronounced slicer, but we'll use slick3r because it sounds slicker. Anyway, as you can see, mine is already installed and it's the newest version, but yours will go ahead and install Slick 3R. So OpenSCAD will allow us to design the brackets, and then Slick 3R slices the bracket so that it is prepared in a file that can then be inserted into the 3D printer, and it'll print it, the thing that we designed. So the slicer does that. Slices it into layers, and then the 3D printer will print each of those layers one at a time. We'll do that next class, but in the meantime, you're going to have an assignment on Canvas, which you can see right in front of you. It's on the last page of the lecture notes. It hasn't started snowing yet, so I actually didn't even need to do this at home. But I'm assuming that, as the weather app says, that around within the next couple of hours it's going to start snowing. So I think we'll all be happy that we're safely at home and not having to drive through the snow to get home. In any case, we will see you for another lecture on Thursday, and it may also be virtual depending on how bad this snowstorm is. And if it is, it'll be exactly the way I did it today. All right, stay safe.